The Appalachian Trail, a sprawling 2,190-mile expanse of natural beauty, is a beacon for hikers and adventurers seeking peace in the wilderness. But for some, this path has become a sinister and silent witness to unspeakable horrors. In today's video, we'll unravel the chilling tales of murders that left an indelible mark on this iconic trail. In May of 1981, two hikers ventured into the woods, unaware that their journey would end in one of the most haunting crimes in the trail's history. Robert Mountford Jr. and Laura Susan Ramsey were 27-year-old social workers from Maine. They were hiking the Appalachian Trail to raise awareness for troubled youth, embodying kindness and hope. Their journey brought them to a remote stretch near Parisburg, Virginia, a decision that would prove fatal. Unbeknownst to the hikers, they were being watched. Randall Lee Smith, a reclusive local with a troubled past, lived near the trail. Known for his odd behavior, he was a man whose loneliness had festered into something far more sinister. On a quiet evening in May, Smith approached the hikers under the guise of friendliness. The three shared stories, but as the fire flickered, Smith's mask began to slip. His intentions were far from innocent. What happened next would shock the nation. Smith, armed with a .22 caliber pistol, ambushed Robert and Laura. The two were found brutally murdered, their bodies left in shallow graves near the trail. The crime scene painted a horrifying picture of trust betrayed and violence unleashed. Smith was arrested shortly after, and in a plea deal, he admitted to 2 counts of second-degree murder. His sentence? 30 years in prison. But the justice system, much like the trail itself, took a dark turn. Smith was released after just 15 years on mandatory parole, walking free in 1996, a decision that enraged the victims' families and hikers alike. For over a decade, Randall Lee Smith lived quietly, as if the ghosts of his crimes had been laid to rest, but in May 2008, they returned with a vengeance. Scott Johnston and Sean Farmer were on a fishing trip near Dismal Creek, just 2 miles from the site of Smith's 1981 murders. The men were approached by a friendly stranger. They shared food, drinks, and conversation. That stranger? Randall Lee Smith. At first, Smith seemed harmless, but as the evening progressed, the atmosphere grew tense. Without warning, Smith pulled a gun and opened fire. Scott was shot in the neck and back. Sean took bullets to the head and chest. Against all odds, both men survived. Smith attempted to escape in Scott's truck, but crashed shortly after. When authorities arrived, the once feared Appalachian Trail killer was subdued. He died days later in jail from injuries sustained in the crash, ending his reign of terror. Randall Lee Smith's story reminds us that even the most picturesque places can harbor darkness. The Appalachian Trail may stretch across miles of natural beauty, but for those who remember, its paths will forever echo with the haunting legacy of the man who turned it into a hunting ground. But there is a history of dark events occurring along this scenic route, as far back as the following story in 1974. 26-year-old Joel Polson, a hiker from South Carolina, had embarked on a solo trek through Virginia's portion of the trail. Joel was known for his meticulous planning and love for the outdoors, but on May 20th, everything took a dark turn. Joel's body was discovered near the Punch Bowl shelter in Amherst County. He had been beaten and shot multiple times. Authorities initially struggled to piece together what happened. Joel's killer, Ralph Howard Fox, was an unstable drifter with a long history of violent crime. He had spotted Joel on the trail and decided to ambush him in a robbery gone wrong. While Fox was eventually captured and sentenced to life in prison, the senselessness of this crime left hikers on edge. It was a stark reminder that even the most remote locations weren't immune to human darkness. Just 1 year later, the Appalachian Trail would be marred by yet another tragedy. This time, it was the brutal murder of Janice Balza, a 22-year-old nurse who was hiking through Pennsylvania. Janice had been traveling with a friend, but at one point the two separated, agreeing to meet later at a designated checkpoint. When Janice didn't show up, her friend retraced their steps, only to stumble upon a horrifying scene. Janice had been attacked with a hatchet by Paul Bigley, a mentally unstable Vietnam War veteran. Bigley claimed he had been hunting witches and mistook Janice for one. The attack was frenzied, leaving little doubt about his intent. He was arrested shortly after the murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The case raised awareness about mental health and the dangers of crossing paths with unpredictable strangers on remote trails. Fast forward to 1988, and the Appalachian Trail bore witness to one of the most heinous hate crimes in its history. Rebecca White and her partner, Claudia Brenner, were hiking through Pennsylvania's Michaud State Forest when they encountered Stephen Roy Carr, a drifter known for his erratic behavior. Carr, fueled by deep-seated homophobia, stalked the couple for miles. When they set up camp, Carr opened fire with a .22 caliber rifle, killing Rebecca and severely injuring Claudia. Despite her injuries, Claudia managed to hike several miles to get help, ultimately surviving the ordeal. Carr was apprehended days later and sentenced to life without parole. This tragedy underscored the vulnerabilities of LGBTQ+ individuals in rural areas and sparked conversations about safety on public lands. By 1996, the Appalachian Trail had become synonymous with both beauty and danger. That year, the Shenandoah National Park became the setting for a gruesome double murder. Julie Williams and Lolly Winans, two women in their late 20s, had been camping in a secluded area when they were attacked. Their bodies were discovered bound and gagged, their throats slashed in a vicious attack that sent shockwaves through the hiking community. Investigators zeroed in on Darrell David Rice, a man with a history of violence against women. He was charged with the murders, but later released when DNA evidence failed to link him to the crime. To this day, the case remains unsolved, with many speculating about whether Rice was the true perpetrator or if another killer remains at large. The trail still stands as a symbol of peace and adventure, but the shadows of the past linger, a reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers are the ones we never see coming. The Appalachian Trail Conservancy reminds us that with over 3 million annual visitors, these incidents are rare. Yet they serve as stark reminders of the unpredictable nature of both the wilderness and human behavior. When exploring the trail, always stay alert, trust your instincts, and hike with others when possible. While the beauty of the Appalachian Trail is undeniable, its dark stories remind us to tread carefully. The Appalachian Trail beckons adventurers with its promise of tranquility. But behind its towering trees and winding paths lies a history that reminds us, even in the most peaceful places, danger can lurk.